Hi everyone, Evelina from Arcadier here. Today we're speaking with Kenneth, co-founder and CCO of Arcadier. Previous head of strategy and BD for PayPal Asia Pacific, with a background as a chartered accountant and voted one of Asia's best marketeers in 2016, Ken brings a depth of knowledge in marketplaces, online payments, and e-commerce in Asia. Hi Ken, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ev, for the introduction, and a very good day to everyone. My name is Kenneth. I'm a co-founder of Arcadier. Well, first and foremost, thank you to you for being part of Arcadier Inspire. We truly are really honored for you to have joined us today. I'm actually very pleased to be a speaker at this summit myself, and I'd like to talk to you about a topic that's very close to my heart. What are the reasons for the massive growth of marketplaces, and what the future holds for this growth? But before I start, I think it's important to establish what a marketplace is. So, what is a marketplace? Regardless whether it's an online experience or an offline experience, a marketplace is any platform of trade that allows many buyers and many sellers to trade and transact simultaneously. So in all, the definition of the word, a farmer's market is marketplace, so is a shopping mall. And of course, Lazada is an online version of marketplace. All these platforms allows many buyers and many sellers to transact simultaneously. So as you can see, marketplaces are always the norm for how people have transacted over time. In the ancient times of Rome to the Grand Bazaar of Istanbul, collective buying has always been the way people have gone to search, compare prices, buy and sell items amongst each other. So, an online marketplace is essentially the digitized form of a marketplace, allowing a more fluid trade exchange. It's actually not a new invention, but it's a form of commerce that we are very used to, and we've always been part of how humans have discovered and transacted. And now it's over the internet. So what are the trends that we have seen in the last 20 years with respect to marketplaces? And what does the future hold for marketplaces? For today, I'd like to approach my presentation in three different history in time. The first period being 1995 to 2009, and I'll talk about 2010 to 2015, and finally from 2015 onwards, what have we seen and what is the future that we will see in marketplaces. As you can see, I've actually already color-coded all through the three different phases of time so that you can follow the presentation a lot better. So let's start with the first one. So what happened between 1995 to 2009? Well, two phenomena actually happened during this time. First of all, is that everyone is on the internet and everyone wants their own e-commerce site and websites. So it actually becomes extremely difficult to be discovered. In fact, it's estimated that at least 12 to 24 million online e-commerce stores are alive now globally right now. Because it's so crowded that only about 650 of them actually make anything more than $1,000 in annual sales. And the rest do not get any traffic at all. The second is the emergence of what we call the global horizontal marketplaces. So what makes them horizontal is that they sell anything that is available, from baby's milk powder to vehicles to home furnishing. This includes companies like eBay, Amazon, and Rakuten, among many others. Hence, in 2009 to 2015, the trend actually changed away from these horizontal marketplaces. And during this period, what we experience is also the fastest growth in the adoption of marketplaces and the emergence of marketplaces. But this time, what we see is the emergence of what we call a vertical marketplace. What makes them vertical is that they are marketplaces which actually serves a particular industry. Take, for example, transportations or accommodations. And also a particular use case where they serve a particular purpose. For instance, peer-to-peer rental of dresses or peer-to-peer rental of equipment, food delivery, for instance. They're so verticalized and they only perform it for a particular use case. So to give you some examples of vertical marketplaces, and many of these names you're aware of, examples of vertical marketplaces includes Airbnb, which is actually a vertical marketplace for accommodation, Uber for transport, GoFundMe for crowdfunding, Deliveroo for food delivery, among many other vertical marketplaces that has emerged during this period. In fact, vertical marketplaces is actually a form of sharing economy models that have already penetrated to many parts of our lives. Every form of our lives, you see a disruption of a traditional business with the use of an online marketplace as part of the sharing economy models. So, what was the cause of this wave of disruption that has spurred the accelerated growth of marketplaces during this period? Well, the first reason appears to be the challenge of discovery. As mentioned previously, there are many e-commerce sites that's already been created over time, and many of these sites find it very hard to be discovered. Because there's just too many, the real winners is actually your search engines and your social media advertising. That said, it would be your Google search engine, your Facebook social media, your Instagram. These are the true winners because everybody is buying advertisements on them in order to be discovered online. Thus, it becomes more ideal for sellers to be part of a marketplace. The second reason would be the growth of the use of mobile devices. Almost everyone has a smartphone. In fact, in some economies, technology actually jumped a step and moved directly to the smartphone, skipping the use of computers and desktops altogether. Mobile commerce is actually projected to account for 50% of all e-commerce spending by end of this year. With the face of mobile devices being so small, as you can see, people would like to get things very quickly. And because there's so little screen to actually get to things quickly, marketplaces become more verticalized so that people can actually search for food quicker, search for the laundry quicker, or actually try to get a car rental quicker. So without going through many multiple categories, if they will have to go through a horizontal marketplace that has too many categories of items. That's why marketplaces have become more dedicated to a particular use case. The third and last reason, which is a very interesting one, is really the emergence of vertical marketplaces in only this particular period. And the reason that academics who have studied this phenomena has concluded is that because of the 2008 financial crisis, which is really the worst downturn that the world has seen since the Great Depression in the 1930s, this has fundamentally changed the way people behave. People soon realize that they do not actually need to own an item in order to derive utility in the use of an item, hence the sharing economy. As they say, what's mine is yours. Hence, the phenomenon of sharing economy has spurred the growth of marketplaces adoption. So, what does the future have for us? I do believe, honestly, that marketplaces will continue to emerge in various forms. They may sometimes be similar to existing marketplace models that you see out there, but I think they'll be even more hyper-local and more hyper-vertical. Hyper-local in the sense that it will actually be dedicated to a specific country or a city, and hyper-vertical because they will be very narrow in terms of the use case they service. It's not just about your peer-to-peer dress rental for women. It could be a marketplace for peer-to-peer rental of evening gown dresses only for women in New Delhi, India. That's what we mean by very hyper-local and very hyper-vertical. So that's what we see as a phenomena that is going to emerge in terms of marketplaces. Just to give you some illustrations of examples. For those of us who live in Singapore, we have all heard of Honestbee, which is a peer-to-peer shopping concierge, but only serves one single country and one single market, Singapore. Then there's Team, which is actually a home cleaning peer-to-peer marketplace, but for Malaysia, it's only growing within Southeast Asia. Then obviously we all know about Gojek. Gojek is actually the Uber, but only specifically for the Indonesian market for now. And finally, one last example would be Vanity. Vanity is a marketplace for users to book and find beauty, professionals, and treatment, but only for the Singapore market. So you can see that it serves a particular use case and it only serves a particular city or a country. So actually in Arcadia, you would ask, are we seeing this phenomena also happening where there are more hyper-local and hyper-vertical marketplaces being created from platform? So to share with you some of our users, what our users have actually been building on Arcadier, I'll show you some of the examples of marketplaces that hyper-local, hyper-vertical that we've seen even built on our Arcadier platform. For a start, there's Snap Squad. It's a marketplace for freelance photographers only for the United Kingdom market. Then we have Bakers First, a home-based baker, peer-to-peer bakers marketplace only serving Singapore. Kilney, a marketplace for freelance nannies and other family services only for Australia. And then this one from Netherlands, a party location and space marketplace only for the Netherlands. And finally, we have Kayakable, a rental marketplace in Australia. And I think I also have one more, which is Scoot, a marketplace for scooter rental in Bali, Indonesia. And the list goes on, very hyper-local and very hyper-vertical in the way it serves a particular use case at a particular city or market. But then, so where are all this heading? What will we see to emerge in the marketplace space from here on? Is it all about someone building the next marketplace for a sharing economy? Or is marketplace going to be beyond just a sharing economy model that we'll see emerging? So at Arcadier, what we really believe that is largely left untapped is the use of marketplace as a utility. The use of online marketplace technology to digitize traditional ways of working and for the greater good. Much like how online banking has almost completely disrupted the way we have to walk into a bank to perform a task, where marketplace is just not used plainly to be the next Uber for X and for profiteering, but actually to ease the flow of actually bureaucratic processes or cutting out a traditional middleman altogether. So, but what's the draw? Well, marketplaces do drive efficiency of discovery of products and services. It also drives price transparency. And transactions online makes it a lot more easy to actually discover things and to actually even perform cross-border transactions. And more importantly, through the use of marketplaces, for example, in sharing economy models, it actually maximizes resources because sellers and buyers find it so much easier to connect with each other and for buyers to actually discover items online. Just like the example of empty apartments. In the old days, apartments could have been sitting empty by the beach. But with the use of Airbnb, someone could always enjoy that apartment that's sitting on the beach, which was not discovered previously without the use of Airbnb. So what are examples of marketplace as a utility? An example is to ease B2B or ease the use in government, procurement, and in B2B, where it actually improves processes and removes bureaucracy. Some of these are actually private marketplaces that actually only serves a particular government agency for a particular group of people to do wholesale trade among themselves. And it's not for public access. Some examples I have that I thought was very interesting to share today. For example, the Indian government actually started a marketplace called GEMS, an e-marketplace for government requisition. So if you're a government body in India, you can only requisite from this particular marketplace that the government has set up for all your resources and equipment that you require. With the emergence of this trend, Amazon also has jumped into the foray and they also built Amazon for Business, which is for B2B. Local farmers and tradesmen can also sell direct to the end consumers, cutting out the middleman who makes the most money in the past, especially in development countries with very, very poor infrastructures. So the farmers, local farmers could not access knowledge that that is available out there on the internet. But with the smartphones emergence, they can. So marketplaces that have been serving the greater good in terms of the farmer community includes an example in Indonesia. Tani Hub is an app that allows farmers to sell direct to customers, cutting out the middleman, and it is actually an initiative that's actually supported directly by the Indonesian government themselves. Another example is Mano, a marketplace app that was started by the World Food Programme this year in Zambia, cutting out all the red tape and improving the lives of farmers. Imagine if a farmer was to sell a tomato in the past at 10 cents, and an end user actually pays $1 for it because they are unable to discover each other with no direct connections. With an app like that cuts out the middleman so the farmer can sell directly to end consumer. For instance, the farmer could sell the tomato now for 50 cents, which it makes more, 40 cents more. an end consumer no longer pays that dollar. He will pay that 50 cents to the farmer. So with the use of marketplace and technology, it is able to cut down unnecessary middlemen and able to enhance the entire economy between the farmer and the end consumer, and everyone wins. Another example of marketplace as a utility is the use for communities and charities and bazaars, where you do not actually even need a physical location anymore to start raising funds and also to discover items among each other. And I'd like to give some examples of how communities or schools or bazaars could actually use a marketplace technology without actually needing to set up a shop to sell things. For example, I have here is a Singapore example by the National University of Singapore. It's called the NUS Marketplace. It's actually a private marketplace for students within the university to trade amongst themselves, second-hand books among themselves, from the second yearers to the first yearers, and all the items that they could just trade. It's not to make a large part of money for this marketplace. It's just to facilitate students to be able to trade amongst themselves easily within a confined environment. Another example of a greater good marketplace is a social enterprise marketplace called Artisan Fox. And this one is a global online marketplace for talented silversmiths, weavers, and craftsmen in countries like Nepal, Kenya, Guatemala, Mexico, and Afghanistan to be able to sell their cottage industry wares externally. 50% of the profit received from products sold on this marketplace is given back to the artisans, helping them to maintain a sustainable livelihood. Even trade shows do not need to be physical anymore, and they could actually be built on a digital marketplace to support events and to take the marketplace offline onto an online experience. I'd like to give you two examples of this that we already see emerging. Marketplaces like Le New Black, which is a marketplace that's used during the Paris Fashion Week, where purchasers go to this on exhibition to see clothes in a physical place in Paris. And then they will look at their orders on their iPad on online trade shows, and then they make the purchases directly on the iPad itself. So it's a merge, it's a blurring between the offline and the online world. There's also Shop the Floor that's totally online. Its proposition is that why do you actually need a physical trade show anymore? You can totally be without a physical trade show and make the trade show a total online experience. So having identified the future of marketplaces is for utility, it's also important to recognize that most of these marketplaces could be anyone from schools, churches, associations. What they really want is a marketplace that's simple to set up, with no high cost of development, easy to use, and have very little need for maintenance because they're not technologists themselves. As for the middleman, I think it's also time for them to embrace the coming change. If not, they will get disrupted. The view of the world is largely driven, has always largely driven on how Arcadia sees the world. We see the value of marketplaces technology is to bring to the masses, and it's not only should be reserved for the deep pockets who wants to build the next Uber for X, but because the value of marketplaces is so strong by improving processes, reducing waste, reducing unnecessary profiteering from an opaque market, that we should democratize marketplaces technology all together. And that is why we built Arcadia, to make it sure that everyone has the ability to use the technology for the greater good. So this comes to an end to my presentation today and my sharing. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ken. I'm sure that everybody listening found that extremely insightful and very helpful. I definitely think that e-commerce marketplaces, they've come a long way and still have a long way to go. So I guess on that vein, I'm sure that everyone's very curious to hear your thoughts on marketplaces in general. So I'm going to start with the question of, so right now we see a lot of still hyper vertical marketplaces, but that are still quite global and not local. But we do see an emergence. We have Uber that's super horizontal, but it's obviously only on cars. But then we have Grab in Singapore, Didi in China, and then Lyft in the States. So where do you see this going? Do you think that eventually there's always going to be one winner? Is every marketplace type going to eventually have a monopoly?
I think a lot of concerns has been risen, especially in recent times with, Uber selling themselves out to Didi, Chuxing in China. And then you have recent news about Uber exiting Southeast Asia and selling their assets into Grab. There appears to everyone that there seems to be a consolidation. But I personally do not think that that's actually going to be everything that we will see in terms of marketplace trends moving forward. It really depends on the use case that we are looking at. So if your use case like an Uber, and which is a ride-hailing app, as well as an Airbnb, which is for generic accommodation rental, then consolidation appears to work because you are basically serving a very generic customer base. For instance, Airbnb is for people who want to travel the world and they just want to book their travels in one location, and it is about serving all the masses. You might actually see consolidation largely driven by customers searching only at one site for all their needs. But marketplaces, as we spoke about earlier, where they're becoming more hyper-vertical and hyper-local, they actually serve a specific need in a particular country, for instance. So there is a marketplace in Indonesia that I'm aware about called Stay Mata. Stay Mata is basically an Airbnb for Christian travelers going to Indonesia, which is predominantly a Muslim country. So it serves a particular use case, a particular type of customers who are Christian travelers who feels more comfortable residing on their short trips to Indonesia with a Christian family. So examples like that would never be, you never see a consolidation per se in that regard. And for the example I gave earlier about, dress rental, evening gown dress rental in New Delhi. I can't imagine a global dress rental marketplace where you have to reserve your gown 2 months earlier just to get your gowns delivered all the way from the United States. So for those peer-to-peer rental, for instance, it would be within a domain, a community. So I think this consolidation isn't a broad brush phenomena that you'll see in the future of marketplaces. In fact, I think they'll get more and more niche with some of this consolidation for more generic use cases.
That makes sense. Very good points. So I guess on that vein of, specific industries, so right now there are certain industries that only have physical marketplaces. Do you think that, and then we see some hybrid ones as well, and ones that are, bringing in and almost becoming purely online. Do you think that physical marketplaces in some industries or in general will become obsolete? Or do you think that hybrids are the way of the future, or it just depends?
I will go with depends, because there will be some industries that online transactions will naturally disrupt, and it will probably be more online than offline. But there will be certain industries that you will see more of a hybrid. Take for instance the retail mall. There are things that people would want to buy before they make a purchase. They need to touch and feel. So for things like that, you probably have a hybrid of an online and offline experience. Some exhibitions, for instance, where it's a retail exhibition, where people need to touch and feel the items and to look at the shape and size of the items or their buying equipment in exhibition, for instance. Then those you see hybrids. But there will be some that you probably would never need to see them because you really know how they would look. Those might be purely disrupted by marketplace technology altogether. So I think it will always be a hybrid experience. So the weekend market, I think we will start to see online experience augmenting and offline, where you can buy items online before you walk into the weekend market to collect your produce. Those would largely become a hybrid experience. So I would say that it would be a mix of both hybrid as well as fully disrupted. It really depends whether someone needs to touch and feel something, to view something before the purchase. And it's not a constant item. So why I give the example of weekend market, if it's fruit produce, you want to see whether the food is fresh or not fresh. So it likely would be more a hybrid than a total disruption. But it's something that you buy regularly at the same brand of item, tissue boxes, toilet paper, things like that, where you don't actually have to understand the product or feel the product because it's a daily necessity. Those kinds of produce, you might have marketplaces that will fully disrupt the need to actually walk into a shop to make acquisition of something that you know very well.
Very good point. I know that I definitely sometimes am a bit more picky about food than I am about dresses because you can easily return it. So as a follow-up, where do you see services, like online services marketplace, fit into the disruption of online marketplaces or of an industry?
Okay. I think online marketplace technology, one of the biggest thing that they have done is the improvement in terms of discovery of services. Services in particular, your daily services like your plumbers and your air conditioning repairman, for instance. I think discovery of where the service is available on even nanny services. I think for the longest time, discovery of who is providing that service and the availability of service in your neighborhood is actually even more challenging than you are aware of, because you actually don't know which of your neighbors are actually providing that service. So it actually, online marketplaces, I think for services, serve an even bigger purpose than retail. Because retail, you go to a shop, you know where to discover the items. But the disruption of online marketplaces, I think, has actually bring even more value to services because discovery is even better. And because of better discovery and more options in the market for people to be able to discover who is providing that service, it makes the whole trade more efficient in so many more ways. And it also drives a lot more price competitiveness in the market with services. So I think fundamentally marketplaces has the greatest impact in terms of services provision because it really helps discovery so much better.
And a follow up to that, how far along do you think on that journey is the services industry? Do you think it's still quite nascent, or do you think that it's quite mature?
Oh, I think it's still very nascent. I mean, all that we have seen so far are very surface. Your services, the air conditioning man, some marketplaces, your spa booking marketplaces, as well as marketplaces involving discovery of other forms of services like interior designers and all that. I think you're just scratching the surface of the use of it for services. It would be great to actually even know if there are volunteers where they have time to spare in a community, for instance. It's ad hoc services that could be easily discovered, especially if there are a lot of aged people in a particular community. It would be good to know who is available to help them. But these people do not do it as a business. They do it as a volunteer. So an online marketplace will serve a use case like that even better, where it's not a publicly available business and it's ad hoc. So discovery is very transient. So I think that there are so many more permutations of services that are not in a formal business setting before, like a spa booking or a aircon repairman, that are services that could really maximize the use of marketplaces for discovery. So we're just really scratching the surface of it. That's what I feel.
All right, you heard it, everyone. Services marketplaces, get on it. Okay, so my next question, you've obviously seen tons of marketplaces being built using Arcadia as well as just globally. What are the three biggest obstacles you think people encounter when they're creating a marketplace?
I think it's an interesting question. I mean, I've been asked this question many times over in many forms. Like, how do I create a successful marketplace? And my answer is always the same, right? Before you even start a marketplace, I think you need to recognize that marketplaces are not an online shop. You need many buyers and many sellers to participate within the environment. So even before you even start creating your marketplace, you need to at least have certain parts of the equations cornered. For one, if you have no idea of the industry, let's say you are a jaded investment banker, do not go and start a marketplace from scratch to for nanny sitting or a particular industry like for air conditioning repairman, where you actually have no contacts with any of the suppliers to begin with. So do not go into creating a marketplace without actually some background knowledge or some background contact in those markets. If you don't, you're not even second is you don't even participate in the marketplace itself. Before you start, you need to think about, do I own one side of the equation? So marketplaces are about two-sided equation, many buyers and many sellers on two sides. So if you don't even own either the buyer group or the seller group, or know someone who owns it that you can get access to quickly, don't even start a marketplace, because marketplaces is just not about going with a blank sheet of paper and expecting to be able to find merchants immediately or buyers immediately. You can actually own the buyer side of the equation. So once you have many buyers and you know you can easily access these buyers, it's actually very much easier to sell into the merchants to say, I have all these buyer pool that you should come onto my marketplace. On the flip side, if you are part of an association or you're a member of a particular group, interest group, that you can easily find merchants, you can load them on, and then you allow the buyers to discover things on this marketplace. So that way you'll be easier for you to be more successful. So please own one side, otherwise, or have at least some knowledge of the industry. Otherwise, don't even try starting. I think the third one that people have to realize that in terms of marketplace development is that there's a lot of complexity to marketplaces that they might not be even aware about, like dispute resolution that might come in when a buyer and a seller argues about it. Owning a marketplace as the administrator, you have to somehow get involved and manage all that processes. Validating, making sure that your merchants are not selling items that are consistently counterfeit or are just not of saleable nature, such that you will get a lot of the buyers very upset. So there's a lot of complexity that you need to think about before you start a marketplace beyond just setting up one. I think a lot of people actually, when they first start, they always think about the technology, where technology is the biggest impediment to marketplace development. But with the emergence of companies like Arcadier, which allows people to create a marketplace easily and remove the need for technology to the biggest impediment, a lot of them goes, oh, okay, what now? Because their focus was so much in technology. But it's actually your biggest problems if you're trying to start a marketplace is actually not technology. Is actually all the other intangibles that I mentioned about. Those are your biggest challenges you need to think about when you create a marketplace.
Very true. So do you think it's possible for the first person, if they are the seller themselves, and then to slowly grow their marketplace so it incorporates others? Or should you always have a base of multiple sellers available from the get-go?
Actually, both. It's possible. So don't think of the complexity of having to need to have many sellers on the marketplace. So from experience from Arcadier ourselves, what we've noticed is that it's not the number of sellers on the marketplace that matters to buyers who are visiting a marketplace. It's about the number of items that the marketplace sells. So you can actually still use a marketplace technology, start almost with a single seller yourself, because you potentially would have already the products if you are a merchant. List the items, at least a couple of items, like 30 items and all, so that when buyers go in, they say, okay, there are a lot of items I can buy from this marketplace. And you can actually already start business. You really do not need to have many merchants to start. So you technically are using the marketplace technology almost like online shop, which is fine, right? So a marketplace is even more complex than an online shop, which allows you to have only one merchant. A marketplace allows you to have many merchants. So definitely with that complexity that is built for, it can easily serve just one merchant. So if you are a merchant and you think that with you have so much experience and so many products to sell on your own marketplace to begin with, and then get a little bit more traction and invite the second seller and then make a commission from the second seller, it actually expands your business beyond your own. You actually will be running businesses for other people for commission at the same time. So even if you are a single seller, I would rank, and you have that vision and that growth ambition, You could start with being the only merchant on the marketplace for a very long time, as long as you have sufficient items to sell. Because really, buyers don't look at number of sellers on the marketplace. They look at the number of items available on the marketplace. So if you have the ambition, I would say start a marketplace, not an online shop, and then slowly wait for a year or so. If you're comfortable, invite the second seller, third seller, fourth seller, and you can actually make money out of other people's sales as well.
Very interesting. It's very good advice. Definitely, know the market that you're in and start slowly. If it's only you, it's okay, and then just grow from there. So what's one piece of advice that you would like to give to everyone, whether it's related to starting a marketplace or as a fellow founder of a startup?
Okay, one piece of advice. Startups are really, really hard. And you have to be mentally prepared to have the grit to see it on. I mean, left a big corporate job to start Arcadier. That was 5 years ago. A lot of luxuries you need to give up, but really you soon realize you don't really need everything. You just need to be happy. Startups bring a lot of joy because a lot of things are in control, especially if you were in a corporate environment before where you have to deal with bureaucracies and all. Doing a startup is actually very refreshing. Decisions are made a lot faster, but it's also a roller coaster ride. So it's not consistent. There's going to be highs and lows when you win projects and when you lose projects. So it's actually very much an emotional roller coaster that you have to go through. But the experience itself pays for itself. The number of people you will meet through your whole journey itself, and the conversations, you realize you learn so much more than being stuck in a corporate job. So if you have that ambition, I think about it, though. You have to think about it because it's not easy, but at the same time, you will find that it's actually really rewarding.
I think we can all vouch for the roller coaster of working for a startup, but how enjoyable it is for sure.
Yep.
Last question that I'm going to ask is, what inspires you?
What inspires me? I think my team at Arcadier inspires me the most. Coming to work every day and looking at the passion of everyone in your office, and you can trust everyone in terms of things getting done, and it inspires me to see that driven nature of the business and the team working towards the vision of a greater good, and that inspires me every day to actually push on. So as a leader in the organization, seeing the passion that drives through everyone, it really inspires you to be better leader and to really help everyone along in terms of driving that common vision that we have as an organization. So that really inspires me every day.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ken, and we'll catch you soon. And everybody else, have a great day. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.